And let's go to the story now. President Cyril Ramaphosa says that more needs to be done to improve service delivery in Johannesburg and Gauteng. Ramaphosa and members of his cabinet visited the city yesterday following what he described as an unpleasant experience during two previous meetings of the G20 in Johannesburg. The city will play the host of the high-profile G20 meeting of leaders. But is Joburg still a viable destination for tourism? Well, joining us now in studio is the Chief Marketing Officer of Gauteng Tourism, Barba, who's joining us in studio. Barba, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. Geez, I don't know if you were listening what the President said yesterday during his opening remarks while meeting members of the provincial legislature about how disappointed he was when he had two other G20 meetings taking place here in the province. What's your take as the province? Because on the other end as well, here we're speaking about tourism, again, as the President has indicated.
Absolutely. And remember, the President is our #1 chief destination marketer in the country. So we take commands from him and we take the criticism with almost humility. And that's a call that needs to be galvanizing all of us, all the key stakeholders, especially as he encouraged us as the provincial government to work with the private sector. But also our communities. It's the communities and the entire ecosystems that identifies our cities. It's us, the people that hoy garbage all over. Therefore, it becomes our responsibility to make sure that we clean our spaces, we make our province, our cities livable. Gone are the days where people visit just a big country or even a province. People are visiting cities. Cities are super brands. Therefore, livable working spaces, visitable spaces are an ingredient of what constitutes a growing and sustainable tourism. Despite all of this, we are quite encouraged by the recent Q4 statistics that confirms that Johannesburg and Gauteng continues to be the leading destination. Of the 8.9 million people that visited the country, almost 42% of that came to province. And we are not actually happy with that. We want to double up this effort. And the President calls and push will not have come at an opportune time to galvanize us to even do better.
Yep. I just quickly want to go back to what the President said yesterday. Just take a listen to what the President had to say as he was addressing the members of the provincial executive in Gauteng while sitting at the Joburg Council. This is what the President has to say about his experience with just the two G20 meetings that were held in the province.
I should say that one or two meetings of the G20 that I attended here was not very pleasing. The environment that one observed was not a pleasing environment. I say this so that we can improve immensely. As South Africans, we are proud people, and let us get that pride that we have, self-pride, lift us up so that we do present a G20 that will wow people.
So that's the standard that the President has set, a G20 that will wow people. But when you drive around the Joburg CBD, it is in a very, very poor state, and even the Premier apologizing to the President for the experience that the President has had. And the President goes on to say that, listen, at the end of the day, after that G20 Leaders Summit, it will be called the Johannesburg Declaration. But it must be a Johannesburg that is in a good state.
100%. It must be a Johannesburg that is in a good state. It must be a Tshwane that is in a good state. As you know, on the sideline of the G20, they will be visiting heads of states. They will be received at the country's capital city. And as Gauteng, we are having the largest metros in the countries. So working spaces, working lights, working robots, are an ingredient of a thriving tourism sector. And we have started that with the hosting of Meetings Africa just a few weeks ago, where, for example, the City of Johannesburg have unleashed tourism monitors and tourism ambassadors as part of these efforts. The 6,000 crime prevention wardens and the traffic wardens that are in the province are some of these efforts. The 3 helicopters that have been contributed to the crime prevention efforts are part of this effort. But it starts with us. Botho ke bontle in our spaces. We should be able to exude this pride that this president is speaking about. And like I've said, I'm more than convinced that we will rally behind all the partners and ensure that not just for G20, we also roll out the golden carpet to welcome our guests, but continue to live in a city that is better.
Yeah, but what's the role of you and I as individuals when we are speaking about potholes? You and I can't fix potholes. It's a municipal competence. It's a governmental competence. We've seen now the private sector, for instance, trying to step in and trying to assist. But even that effort, unfortunately, doesn't go way far. I was saying to the team yesterday, I was driving on Jan Smuts Avenue yesterday on my way to Rosebank, and by the way, the president doesn't live too far from Hyde Park Centre. And right there at Hyde Park Centre, there are so many potholes. And like, geez, guys, the president doesn't live too far from this area. Why is this being allowed to happen? And also the impact that then has on brand SA, but brand Johannesburg, brand Gauteng.
Absolutely, and it doesn't need to be fixed because the president lives there. It just needs to be fixed. And let's not underestimate the impact the private sector's input does. As I was driving in this morning, the guys that have been deployed by another company to assist in the traffic lights have contributed immensely into the city. And these are classical examples where we have seen the private sector also coming on board to assist in fixing potholes. So the role of municipalities, the role of the private sector, and ourselves as communities combined will go a long way in assisting this. But that's what platforms like this assist us to do, to put on a call to say, we are not just doing this because it's G20. We need to live in livable cities. We need to live in habitable spaces so that domestic tourism can thrive before we even prepare for international arrival. We have seen it with COVID, where nobody was coming into our country. We had to rely on our domestic base. Therefore, it's not just international tourists that goes through the potholes. Ourselves every day goes through those potholes. And it's a wake-up call to our cities, to how we are appropriating budget, because tourism is a direct beneficiary of a working city. A working Johannesburg, Aldrin, a working Gauteng, it's an ingredient for a working South Africa and a working Africa.
Yeah. What are Gauteng Tourism's authorities' major issues that you believe that needs to be addressed quite urgently? And I know that water, for instance, is a point that has been raised continuously. It's one of the priorities that the president has also set out in his State of the Nation address. It's part of the G13 targets that has been set out by the Premier as well. But what are your major issues that you think need to be dealt with urgently? 100%,
and that is why we made a contribution to the Premier's articulation of the G30 challenges, because there's a dialectical link between water and electricity. You use water to pump electricity, but you can imagine you are having a sprawling metropolis, you are having the richest square mile in Africa, and the water is not coming out correctly. So water, electricity are quite crucial. Working robots, cleaner cities. These are some of the priorities the MEC has also been articulating. It's part of what we will be taking to the Gauteng Investment Conference on the 3rd and the 4th of April to look for investment in cleaning our cities. And we are quite encouraged. You will have seen efforts from Josie My Josie, for example, with private companies like Nando's, Anglo-American coming on board. And we are quite convinced that with all these collaborative efforts, we will then be able to address these key things. If you clean the streets, if you deal with crime, if you attend to potholes and lightings, those are the basic necessities for a thriving and livable city region.
I've got two quick questions for you. Do you think that Nasrec is the right venue to be hosting some of these high-profile meetings?
Nasrec is the most wired place in the continent. It's been the hub of FIFA 2010 World Cup. It's the biggest infrastructure facility we have. What we need to do, which we have started doing, is to get the basic right. cut the grass, get the light working, if you put a branding that will have been in a small square meters there, the place is too huge, it swallows the place. But security-wise, that is the most decent places. The G20 allocation to us was not just a favor, it was as a result of the quality infrastructure and ability to evacuate and ability to have a secure place. Newzroom, it hosted many events, and we are definitely sure that we will put up a spectacle.
But world leaders, do you think that that's the right venue to host world leaders?
World leaders have been here before. That's the proper right venue.
At Newzroom?
Absolutely. Remember, you need a secured place. You will not be able to host world leaders in certain convention center, for example, because you can't cordon off the mall. You can't cordon off the Gauteng station. So Newzroom is an excluded place. You are able to implement your security detail plan and the like. All that was raised by the president is correct, and they are being attended to.
Okay. The possibility, because Jordan Hill-Lewis, we're going to be speaking to him now, the mayor of the city of Cape Town, is saying that, listen, Mr. President, bring it back to Cape Town. We'll be able to host those world leaders. What is Gauteng Tourism Authority's reaction to that?
No, we'll not entertain and engage in that. We're a unitary country. Gauteng, Johannesburg is hosting on behalf of the country and the continent. It's unfortunate to utter such statements, especially in a unitary country where we're dealing with all these triple challenges. It's not just about hosting world leaders. It's about what the legacy this hosts. It's about what the continent benefits and an ordinary person on the street benefit. We have no time for such political gymnastics.